We are live. Did you have to wait for me, Jade?
No, we were good. We're
okay,
good.
We are good. Welcome, everybody. Welcome for joining this 24th Power Webinar. We are about to begin. We wait a minute to have everyone in this 24th webinar, and it will be a very special one. Again, as I tell it all the time, again, that it will be a very special one, but this is really a webinar. Yeah, I will put you in a journey with these beautiful, purpose-driven people. Jade Simmons, happy to have you in a very busy time for you.
Thank you for having me.
And Hein, of course. I don't know where you see Hein, but I see him on the right side. Maybe Jade sees him on the left side. I don't know what Hein sees or not, but Hein was born blind, people. So happy to have you here. He's a very special person. I'm happy to talk more about it in a minute. So we wait.
Good to be here. And you both look fabulous.
You're just saying that, Hein. You're just saying that.
I can feel it.
Yeah, James, we are still. We could start with you playing the piano, but tell me, where are you?
I am in a hotel in North Carolina, actually. So unfortunately, no piano at my fingertips. I wish. Yeah. And people excuse me for sometimes she's a little bit blurry, but that is because she's in a hotel and she's using the Wi-Fi, and most of the time there are more people in the hotel using the Wi-Fi, but it's looking good. It's looking good. It's 9 a.m. No, it's 10 a.m. now.
10 a.m. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're already an hour too early.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having you. Also, you can use the chat. Tell us where you're from, all over the world. We are about to begin. And when you having connection problems, there's only one button in the top of your screen. Most people know that already. Just click that button and reconnect, and the problem will be solved. When we lose connection, we have a problem, but we will solve it. We will solve it. Let's dive in, everybody. Let's dive in. And we really would, of course, start with Jade Simmons. I met her last year, April. Do you still remember, Jade?
Yeah, that seems like so much longer. But yeah, you're right. Last April.
And I watched you on stage with your piano. And you were so energetic, and it's the title of this webinar. Huh? The music is all around us. All you have to do is listen. And that's connected me to introduce Hein, of course. Coming back to you, Hein, in a second. But Jade, what was your experience last year in Vancouver? Because we are living now in a different time, and so much has happened. You met me, you met my children as well. Mm-hmm. We had fun. We made funny pictures.
Yeah, your rambunctious boys there were adorable.
Tell me, please, more about you, because I think a lot of people don't know you from this part of the world. Hein is South African, living in is it Norway? Yeah.
Sweden. Yeah.
Sweden. Yeah, I always forget those two countries. Scandinavian. but
yeah.
Jade, please tell me, who are you?
Well, when you saw me, you were watching me perform in my profession. I'm a concert pianist and a professional speaker. And I found a way to marry those two things. I mean, I feel like the luckiest lady on earth, because I operate fully in my purpose and passion every day. So you saw me combining those things for the end goal of inspiration and what we like to call activation. And so I was speaking about something called the wow factor. How do you bring more uniqueness to your events? And so companies and corporations bring me in the world over to talk about reinvention and transformation and leadership and diversity. And I say I feel lucky because, growing up, I just wanted to be a classical concert pianist, and all of my schooling, whether it was Northwestern University or eventually my graduate school at Rice University, was all in music. And it was a few years into my career where I started speaking from the stage and incorporating not only information, but inspiration into my experiences. And so literally, I am paid in the form of watching people transform in front of my eyes, or get new perspective right on the spot, or best yet, see themselves differently. So to me, the biggest reward is not the standing ovation, which those are fun, those are great for the ego, but the greatest reward is when people say they feel like they can do something differently, or they see themselves in a more powerful way after the time that we spent together. So that's a pretty amazing career. But the original intention, was different. And I think we're living in a time where we had original intentions that have all been shaken up. And so while it would be easy to say that this year is a much harder year or a much darker year, I honestly feel like we're living, even though it's darkness, there's some really rewarding light to be seen. So I'm excited to be able to talk about that more. But I'm a mother of 2 kiddos, and I'm a wife. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We're both originally from Charleston, South Carolina. And so we've been together since we were 15 years old. So we've had the blessing of literally growing up together and still really liking and loving each other after all those years. We make our home actually in Houston, Texas. And so I know we won't get into politics today, but I live a life kind of marked by reinvention. And right now I'm running for president of the United States, believe it or not, which for me is the biggest, most uncomfortable jump I've ever made. But the thing that's been consistent is that it's about purpose and feeling like there's a void to fill, an impact to be made. And that's how I've ended up in this spot right now.
Yeah, the purpose that was our connection in Vancouver.
That's right.
I think you run up to me from finally I found you. That were the first few words that you were sharing with me. I said, why?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that you were in the room when I introduced 𝐓𝐡𝐞 for the rest of the speakers bureau industry. I didn't even know, because normally it was not allowed to have speakers in that room, and I still don't get that.
Yeah.
So I was really surprised that we were engaged by that purpose-driven.
That's right.
And that you recently said, yes, I would love to do a webinar with you. But who is Jade as a child? Who was Jade as a child? I love to hear that.
Wow. Man, I was very curious, and I asked a lot of questions. I remember my grandmother saying I was always asking why, and I was what we call a tomboy. So the way that my parents raised me was to be adventurous. I was very competitive growing up, and I competed often with guys, with boys. One of my favorite pastimes is arm wrestling, believe it or not. And I'm quite good at it, if I do say so myself. And my father, he's a civil rights activist. And so even at a very young age, he introduced me to some powerful images that I'll probably never forget. I remember being at a KKK rally when I was 6 or 7 years old, and having him really teach me what I was seeing, understanding the methodology of hatred, or the methodology of just the power of communication. So I had this really incredible childhood where I was exposed to things you don't normally think of exposing children to, but I think it's completely shaped the way that I see the world now and how I see people. I would say my mother is who I get my strong faith from. She was one who taught me to really stay connected and to look for God in everything. And so both of those two worldviews are critical to who I am now. Beautiful, beautiful.
Mm-hmm. You suffered a lot of challenges, or was it easy, your life story?
Yeah, and it may be, and I know Hein will get into this later, this theme of gratitude. You know, so even the things that probably were hard, I almost instantly reframed them as a lesson. So I had a lot of almost, I would say, but I haven't suffered like many people have. And I think it's because I haven't, and I see other people suffering, that I am endlessly curious about how to end that, because it doesn't seem fair to me, you know, that I get to have this blessed life in a way. So the onus seems now to be on the blessed to restore to those who have not had the same thing. So I'm sure my parents could point out different challenges, but to me, they're not even worth mentioning. They don't rate, you know, on the scale of things that we've seen. So I feel honestly extremely blessed. I had an abundance of riches in many ways. We weren't a wealthy family at all, but we weren't a poor family. And I think even though we probably had less than I thought, my parents made sure that there was a way for me to do everything they felt like I needed to do. So in that way, I just can't complain.
What I know about you, you are a giver. You give a lot. You care a lot about people. You really want not only motivate them, but you really want to inspire them with what you experience. And it's a connection with the music that is more powerful, that you can bring more impact. Because I included a short trailer of August Rush on the webinar website, and that is one of my favorite movies. It's amazing, and that's also the link with the title, of course, of this webinar. And we must all see it's not only the music; it's just fun. People wake up. People wake up. Do what you feel. And just do it, I guess. And I think that the connection with music, I was only thinking I could have done it only with you, Jade. But I did something throughout my feeling that is, okay, I could include my dog, who maybe is a better listener than most other people. But for some reason, I met this other beautiful guy, Hein Wagner, and he was born blind. And I listened to his story in a Zoom call, and everybody has not one story; everybody has more story. And Jade, you have two children. Hein also have a child. Please. Tell us, Hein. What? I posted your whole list of what you have accomplished, and you are 48. Are you?
Yeah, that's right.
Only 48.
Yeah, and 48 this year.
The simple question: what drives you, and who were you as a child? Let's start with that.
Yeah. Well, if you were to ask me who am I think who I want to be is a blind man with vision. And you know, I think my childhood in many ways I was such a rebel, Maurice, and the reason for that was I was born blind, but I was not going to accept this blindness as my reality. So that made me, and you know, growing up as a small child, having to, you know, as a sighted citizen, if I was one, you know, you have a sighted person, you've got things to deal with, but as a blind person, there's a whole different array of things coming at you. I always say that, you know, fear. I'm so happy that that I was never scared of the dark, because that could have kept me busy as a blind child for many months, I'm sure. But you know, I was 5 years old when my parents sent me off to blind school, and at the time I couldn't believe they did this, because if you think about it, the first 5 years of my life back at home, I could easily find my way to the bedroom, to my bathroom, to the kitchen. I knew our house so well. And there I was, they decided to send me off to blind school, to boarding house, and it's the best thing they could have ever done. But for me as a 5-year-old, I thought they were incredibly cruel, because it was a new environment. So it was probably my second biggest traumatic experience, arriving at blind school. And then the only thing I wanted to do was get out of blind school. So as a 5-year-old being there, I just wanted to go back home. So for the first 5 weeks, I wasn't allowed to go home because the teacher said, no, you have to stay here. You told my parents, Hein's never going to adapt to this new norm if he doesn't at least stay for 5 weeks. So I was counting the days, the minutes, I was literally counting the hours and minutes to go back home. All I wanted to do was be back with my sighted friends, the kids who I grew up since I was in my diapers. And the day they fetched me, when that car pulled up at the boarding house and I jumped in the car, I was so excited. I arrived back at home, and this group of sighted kids completely, totally rejected me from their little playgroup. I couldn't understand it. It was my single biggest traumatic experience. And maybe it was in my head, but all I wanted to do was be like them. And what I did was I was standing there sort of looking at this, thinking, but what are they doing? And I realized they're all on their bicycles. They're all cycling up and down the road. And I thought, well, the only way that I can be accepted in this little group is if I grab a bicycle. Now, Maurice, blind don't normally own bicycles unless your parents are fairly sadistic. You're not going to own a bicycle as a 5-year-old. But my brother had one. And he was sighted, and I took his bicycle out the garage. I was walking up and down the driveway for 2 hours, and I was about to give up. And I remember that tears were running down my face. All I wanted to do was join these sighted kids to get back into that little group. 3 hours later, I was about to throw the bicycle down. And as I turned to throw it away from me, I heard this clickety-click sound reflecting off the bicycle's gears against the pavement, and I realized that it was as clear as daylight, and I could use that little tiny noise as feedback to cycle in a straight line and challenge these kids. Now, why am I telling you this? It is because if I gave up 4 paces earlier, threw that bicycle down, my life would have probably turned out differently. But that kind of breakthrough as a 5-year-old allowed me to have so many more breakthroughs in life. So yes, my growing up was hard as a blind kid, but all of a sudden I was in and amongst 300 blind kids in the same school. We solved the world problem from blind school. The world doesn't even know it. So I had an amazing childhood, sometimes a rough one, but I was very privileged because we were also not a wealthy family, but I was in a position where I had food on the table 3 times a day. I was in and amongst blind kids to learn the ropes of life and to find a way to navigate this huge obstacle called blindness.
Amazing. It's unbelievable, and of course the Jade Hein. It was for the first time I had a briefing. When did we do the briefing last Friday? I was only enjoying you both.
Yeah.
Thanks, Maurice.
Just you both were interested in each other, only asking questions for one another, and that made it so beautiful for me. Thank you, Hein, and maybe people, you read the list of Hein. He has completed. Do you still have the list in your mind what you already accomplished?
I think I do if I delve quite deep. But if you ask me what is my biggest achievement, and that is simply, Maurice, is accepting my blindness unconditionally. You know what? It didn't happen overnight. It took me half my life. I think I was about 25 years old when I could say for sure that, okay, I have now dealt with this. And you know what happened was it opened the day that I accepted my blindness for what it is. It opened my mind to so many opportunities. And if I look back at it today, if you offer me sight tomorrow, I would just say no. And you know why? Because it took me such a long time to get used to who I am and be at peace with who I am. And today I don't want to disturb that peace and that inner peace and the purpose I have for anything, not even sight.
You enjoy life more than any other human being.
Well, my wife says my blindness is my biggest asset.
Your wife, you're married.
Yeah. You should ask me, how did we meet?
Yes, I want to know.
On a blind date.
Jade asked how did they meet?
I want to know. I have so many questions for your wife and for your mother. I would love to.
Tell us, please tell us.
Well, we met on a blind date.
We should have seen that coming.
Well, at least all of us were blind, you know. So come on, you know. I had to come all the way to Sweden to meet my wife. I spoke at a conference here 6 years ago, and she, you know, I was here with a friend of mine. He's a photographer and he travels with me all over the world when I go do speaking engagements. And he said to me, we were at the gala dinner, and he said to me, "Hey, there's somebody who wants to talk to you." And I said, and I was talking to another person next to me at the table, and I said, "No, but I can sense it. I could feel that there was an energy in my space which I've never felt before." And I said, "No, I can feel it." And as I turned around, and she stepped closer and she greeted me and said hello, and we started talking. The entire room with 300 people and everything that you find at the gala dinner completely, totally disappeared. The only thing I could see was her. And I always say, you know, where the inside and the outside beauty meets, that's where you'll find Monica. And yeah, so I don't have words to describe it. It was just the most overwhelming sensation, you know, having this person, this energy in my space, and I could absolutely see her beauty.
Wow. And Monica is sighted or no?
Yeah, she is actually. Yeah. She is. It was such a, you know, we were both single at the time. We were in parts of our lives where we both had maybe some you know, relationships that didn't really serve our purpose or worked out in the past. You know how people grow, and I think you're very fortunate, Jade, as you mentioned before. You and your husband have been together for what, I think 27 years, if my maths don't don't fail me right now. But you know, I think for many years, you know, one of my biggest dreams was always to have children, and because my blindness is hereditary, I never had kids. Because in my previous relationships, it became a bit of an issue, because what if there's two blind people in the same home, and obviously my child? So it always became a little bit of it didn't work. Okay, so when I met Monica, we started talking about it. It was never, for her, it was never an issue. It was never. She just said, "Well, Hein, you know, who would be a better role model to a blind child if our child happens to be blind?" No, my daughter isn't blind. She's perfectly sighted. It wasn't hereditary. I mean, so much so that I already decided on her name 20 years before she was.
No way.
Before she was born, because I was in India, and I played for the South African blind cricket team that won the World Cup. And when I walked off the field supporting, you know, knowing that we won a World Cup for the country that I grew up in, that I'm so proud of, I just said, if I'm going to have a girl one day, I'm going to call her India. You know, there she is, 4 years old today. So,
wow.
Yeah, so
I love the name.
Thank you, Maurice.
And you know me already. I'm a bit of connecting. My brain is always making connections. India, I love the country. I met already many people in the last webinars coming from India. I'm married for 12 years this year, and our honeymoon started a little bit in China, but for the rest in India.
Oh, wow.
So we did every part of India, and for me, it's really the people there are really givers, are really serving people. They treat you as king and queen. And even in Ladakh, in the high mountains, high hills, they did not want us to build up the tent. But me and my wife, we are always operating on the same level. And before we went online, I told you I'm a double Aquarian like President Lincoln. Equality is for me very important. Every human being has a story. It's equal. We all have a story at the background. We come from somewhere, and we must just connect, engage with one another, and take care of one another. Absolutely. And in fact, we must take care of this planet Earth. I connect with nature and human beings, and that's why we are so much aligned. We three of us. that really, I feel our energy, although we are online. And of course, people in the chat, when you have questions, please ask them now. You are live in this power webinar, the 24th, next Tuesday, 25th, and then we have a little summer break. But ask your question when you have questions for Jade, the next president of the United States, ladies and gentlemen.
I like it. I like that. We believe in speaking things into existence, Mari. So I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's not, nothing is impossible. It's everything is possible.
Everything.
And the moment every human being has an opportunity to show what they can add to this world. And if you're blind, if you're not blind, I had some great webinars with great human beings the last couple of months since we are in lockdown, from Toronto to Australia, all having a mission, all believing in that mission. And I'm just the guy to connect you both and go and move forward. And I'm only into doing these webinars to get the fear away in the world. We must all listen to our own feelings and just take that first step. Take the first step, because nobody knows what the second step will be.
Well, you're a great connector, that's for sure.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. Just Jade.
Yeah,
what happened on the 25th of May? What happened? Just coming back to that day, it was a double standstill, I guess. It was a standstill and a standstill.
Yeah, I know we had said, let's talk about kind of, the moment that is George Floyd. And I think what's really hitting home is this moment. I mean, this whole moment that we're in. I think we talked about it offline last time. It's really what I call a reset. And again, my instinct is always to instantly reframe and ask the question, what's really happening to us right now? And one of the things I thought at the beginning of the year in January, and we were talking a lot about a sensation that you can't explain, but there were a couple of things I was feeling at the beginning of the year, at least here in America, was that we were coming up into a season where race relations was going to be at an all-time low. Just from a bunch of different factors, we were really coming into a time where we were going to have to face some really hard things where race was concerned. And then I also sensed that the inequalities, Maurice, you talked about being obsessed with equality, that these inequalities that we had been sort of pretending didn't exist were going to come to a head and be exposed. And then we had those two things happen. We had COVID-19, which really shut us down and disallowed us from turning our heads away and our eyes away from other people's circumstances, and things that were always issues were suddenly exacerbated. And then we had the murder of George Floyd. And suddenly we couldn't ignore anymore, not only violence in one instance, but that there was a pattern there. We were seeing some systemic injustices exposed. And so to me, the power of this moment is that we were shut down, because I truly believe if we were just moving along, we wouldn't have taken the time to pay attention and to ask really hard conversations and to really find difficult realizations in order to get to some powerful solutions. And I think one of the reasons I was so excited about today is just listening to Hein and how he sees life really puts perspective on the things that we often take for granted, or the things that or how we often place ourselves and our own needs in front of others. And so to me, we're living in the middle of a powerful opportunity to do some incredible analysis in order to really upgrade. I think we get a chance to upgrade into a new level of living. And that to me is exciting. I know it's a weird word to use in these times, but I'm excited by this moment because I think we have some universal buy-in. Here we are in 3 different parts of the world talking now about the same thing. And that to me, it's an incredible period to get to live through.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking at what Helda in the chat is sharing. Jade and Hein, I'm simply getting emotional listening to you. As Maurice says, we have to connect people and nature to go into the fifth dimension together.
Yeah,
people
good.
have to shine positive energy to influence the people to do better in the future. Love it, Hilda. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hard time. My wife at the event industry is also in a lockdown. We don't know where it's going to. I made the change a bit during the last crisis to be there for mission-driven people, speakers, to create movements in the world. My wife is at the moment in the air. She's a flight attendant, as you know. First flight in this lockdown was to LA. Actually, it was also her last flight before the lockdown. And now she's flying to New York City. Not the best places to pick.
Not the best route. Yeah.
She will be back on Saturday, actually. So it's a very short trip for flying KLM. That's a connection with on Tuesday. We have the last passenger who survived the miracle of the Hudson, Dave Sanderson, and the former head of security of Tony Robbins.
Wow.
At the moment, Tony Robbins is starting a virtual event until Sunday, and I did not know that, but it's coincidence that I have him with Benno Baxen, a very popular guy about the aviation world in Holland, former pilot, commander of KLM, and I brought those two together. And how do we get people back again into the airplane to support the flight industry at the moment, also having a very hard time. People, please let us know if you have questions. Join us with questions. Hein, still my question is what drives you, because what did you do? Ironman, talk about New York Marathon, something on Antarctica. How cold was that?
Freezing.
Was it also a marathon? Oh,
yeah, it was a marathon. Absolutely. You asked me what drives me, Maurice, and
but please share that list. Go on with that list.
Sure. But
speed record. Don't forget that in the car. You were challenging Elon Musk in an electric car. What about that?
Yeah, he's gonna be my next passenger. I'm gonna make him sweat a little bit because we need to break the land speed record in an electric vehicle. I've done it in a petrol car, 322 kilometers an hour. So now it's time to go electric. So I did put a challenge out to them. So if you go look on YouTube under Elon, let's do this. Please help me to try and get the pitch to him. But if you ask me what drives me, it is actually it's a question that
before you answer that.
Sure. Yeah.
The funny thing is, I was at the event with George Clooney last November.
Right.
And one of the journalists who was trying to interview him also asked that first question, what drives you? And he said, well, that's a good question. It's, of course, my car. And that's funny because
well, there we go. It's even the blind man's car, So yeah, I think it's a good idea to do more to support a greener living, and I think Elon is doing a great job. I mean, if I look at the Tesla stock right now, I think it's on Tuesday it was over $1,500, and not so long ago it was 200. So I mean, he is doing something right. But when I was
African time, and he's South African.
Yeah. This is why I think it would be such a great partnership, to partner with him and do a 420 kilometer an hour run. So yeah, check out the clip and pass it on whoever's watching, and whoever's got a contact or a hotline into Elon. He's the most wanted man on the planet. But the interesting story about Antarctica, I guess in a way, you know, why do I do adventure? Why do I do extreme stuff? You know, and more reason, it is simply because I need to see what the world looks like, you know. I'm too curious not to. And I have to do it in different ways than the norm. So I was 16 years old when I've climbed Table Mountain in Cape Town 6 times. Not because I was a born adventurer, but I climbed it 6 times because I got so tired of hearing sighted people describing this picture perfect postcard view. So I had to go climb it. And you know what happened in the process? I completely, utterly, totally fell in love with the smell of the fauna and flora, the texture of the inside of the protea flower between my fingers. And back then, I was 16. I made a deal with myself. And I said, one day, if I have a real job, I'm going to go out in nature as often as I can to recharge, revitalize, re-energize my soul, that I can be ready for the challenges that life might bring my way. Now, of course, today, I know that my picture of Table Mountain is completely different to yours, but I've also come to find out it truly, honestly does not matter. And when I was in Antarctica, I had the most, it was an experience that I don't have words to explain, but we sailed down from the most southern point in Argentina, from Ushuaia. We went down the Beagle Channel, we crossed the Drake Passage. It was only myself and the Russian chef who wasn't sick on board the boat. The other 99 runners for the marathon were completely sick. I don't get seasick, you know, so I was the only blind guy on board the yacht. And because it's a balance thing, I believe, or visual. So I was like, we were just having some good vodkas in the, you know. Anyway, so they've been talking about this after the marathon, the day after the marathon, we're going to sail into Paradise Bay. And it is so cold down there. So we finished the marathon, we got back onto the boat, and the next morning everybody's psyched up about Paradise Bay. And I'm thinking, who in their right mind calls the coldest place on the planet Paradise Bay? So I woke up the next morning in my cabin, and my runner partner, a sighted guy, obviously, he's quiet. I said, what's wrong, Mike? What's going on? Why aren't you talking to me? He said, Hein, because every morning when we wake up, you ask me the following question: what does it look like outside? And today, there's no way that I can explain to you. I said, come on, Mike, you owe this to me. You have to explain to me what you can see. He says, no, we sailed into Paradise Bay, Hein. It's impossible to tell you what it looks like. Okay, so I said, but come on, just give it a try. So he starts to say, I'm looking out the window, Hein. I'm seeing glaciers that are probably 3,000 feet tall. Their perfect reflection is in the most crystal clear water I've ever laid my eyes upon. Right now, there's a couple of icebergs floating past the boat with a number of seals having a good old sunbathe. Now, I must be honest with you, just at the description of that, I felt a little envious of the sighted. But what I didn't know, they arranged for me that very same day to go on my own, drop me in the water in a kayak. I'm kayaking in Antarctica off the coast of the Antarctica Peninsula. And as I'm putting my paddles in the water and I'm rowing just wherever I want to go, they said they'll send somebody after me. Don't worry. I'm already almost at the South Pole. It doesn't matter. So I'm rowing, and these 1,000 metric tons of snow and ice around me, it was so, the way the sound deflects and the sound falls and the soundscape comes back to me. It was so pristinely beautiful. It was the first time in my life that I could actually hear the view. And I guess that's what drives me, is I also want to see the world, but I have to go a little further, I guess, than the average person to be able to do so.
I have a question, Hein, because you just said for a second you were envious of the sighted, and I'm for a second being envious of the blind, because when I think about the situations in society right now, they start at skin level. So literally we're having divisions that are created by what we see, right? Yeah. So, and you as we would have thought is, oh, poor guy, he couldn't see his wife. Yet you said it didn't matter. You instantly felt something. And so your value of her immediately went beyond skin deep. And here we are in my country having issues that start at skin level and never get deeper because of what we see. So do you think, we talked offline about your difference in perspective, even where COVID-19 is concerned, the difficulties that the blind community is facing. What is it that we could learn from you in terms of not being able to see certain things? How do you see people in spite of the fact that you can't see people?
Thanks, Jade. It's very interesting. You know, I grew up in the country that is the most segregated by race on the planet, South Africa.
Wow.
You know, South Africa promulgated apartheid. You know, so the first, I guess, 20 years of my life, I lived under a government that was, you know, mind-washing, brainwashing every single white South African and every single black South African, how bad they are and how stupid they are. You know, they're the system that works so extremely well. But I was very fortunate because I grew up blind in all of this. You know, I always make the joke to my friends, you know, I was 40 years old when I found out I'm white. I always thought I was black. I was so disappointed. But you know, the point is, you know, I was participating in sport at school, and the only kids, although I was in a white-only school back in the day, I'm talking about the 80s, everything has changed. I mean, it's a democratic society now, and they got a lot of work to do to fix the ills of the past, with segregation, etc. But the point is, my friends were other blind athletes who happened to be of color. And it never, ever back in the day occurred to me that there was anything different between me and them, although the government wanted us to believe that. But the only common denominator we had was we couldn't see where the hell we were going, you know, and that was the common ground, you know, between me and fellow black South Africans who were also blind. So I've been so privileged in a way and blessed in a way that I don't judge a book. It's such a cliche, but I don't judge a book by its cover. I met the most phenomenal people because I like to listen to their heart, you know, you know. So I don't know, but I think the one thing that and you alerted to this earlier, you know, and all I want to say is, you know, hats off to you for as an independent candidate running for the, you know, giving it all you have for the president. I think it's absolutely remarkable. And you know, the thing is, I think what we're all going to come out, I think what the world lacks and has been lacking for so many years is empathy. And COVID-19, those of us who will survive COVID-19, the world is going to come out with a lot more empathy. And I think that will fix so many injustices and the way we perceive and look at things moving forward.
You know, here in the States, you talk about that empathy. To be honest with you, we were struggling with that before COVID-19. And COVID-19 forced us to have empathy, and usually in many cases because we found ourselves in situations we weren't expecting to be in. I'll never forget, in Houston, there was a food bank line. So people who needed food during COVID-19 would drive to these centers. And in that line, you had people in luxury cars. So you had Mercedes-Benz in a food bank line. So you knew those people were experiencing something they'd never experienced. And I'm thankful for it, even though it was hardship, even though it was difficulty. And heaven forbid we have to ever see anything again that creates this much death and destruction. But the silver lining was we were forced to experience someone else's experience. And if that doesn't create a sense of understanding and then gratitude, I think we forfeit this moment. So I pray that what you're saying is right, Hein, that we get out of this and we bring that with us. I've been saying, stop saying, go back to normal. That's the last place I want to be. If we can elevate to this place of a new level of understanding, and I believe empathy is not a soft skill. I think it's one of the most hardcore skills, one of the most powerful understand outside of yourself. And so I'm inspired, Hein, as a mother. I didn't expect to be choked up right at the beginning of this. But as you were explaining your childhood, what I was doing was reliving it with you as if I were your mother. And instantly we feel this need to save you. And so the thought of you saying, I just wanted to ride bikes with the other kids. I just wanted to fit in. As a mother, we get tense because we want to do it for you. And your parents let you figure it out. Oh my gosh. How incredible are your parents? Can you I just have to know who they are and how they thought of life for you.
People, I'm going to leave because
sorry, Morris, there's so much I want to know.
I love it. I really love it.
Yeah, Jade, it's you know, my parents, they were, well, my mom's still alive. My dad passed away many years ago. I was only 22 when the big C cancer took him from us, unfortunately. But you know, I always said my mom was she's a South African netball coach. Netball is a Commonwealth sport, and she played Springbok herself. So she was captain of the national team and coached the national team for 11. So she was very driven in sport, and she's 79 years old today. Well, and in a couple of weeks, and she's as fit as a fiddle. And I'm just speaking to her almost every second day. Just make sure you don't, stay away from COVID, stay at home, wear your mask, do your thing. But my dad was I always said, and it's funny that Maurice mentioned this as well earlier, of his experience in India, for example, that my dad had the ability, and I owe him so much gratitude for that. He had the ability to make you, no matter who you were, where you come from, he had one thing, that his mission was to make you feel like a king or a queen. And I always said, if I can just have 1% of that charm or of that way with people, I'll be the luckiest man in the world. And I never got to tell him that, and I don't regret it. In a way, I do regret it, but timing was never right to just hug him and say, wow, thank you for giving me that skill with people, because that skill with people has made me helped me to identify my purpose. It served me and the people that I interact with throughout my life in such a positive way. So they were, as individuals and as a team, they were incredible people.
Yeah, this is a great example for I think a lot of people in the world. This is a great lesson, and even Jade, you are an example. You are an example that in February you just decided I'm going to run for president. No, you are in the same category. I was really looking forward to seeing 𝐻𝐢𝐬𝐜 of Starbucks, former CEO of Starbucks, running for president. But in those two struggles between the Democrats and the Republicans, it's of course very hard. But everything is possible at the moment. And then it's I connect with hear, listen, believe. I connect with hear, listen, believe.
Yeah.
Do we already see that picture? That because we know there are three groups. We know there are three groups: the establishment, the people who look forward, and the biggest group who are in fear. And they feel like, okay, there's nothing to do. Then go back to that life before the lockdown. And I think you, Hein, we all must inspire those people and motivate them and help them, take care for them, and please. Yeah,
I'll tell you what they are. What we're experiencing is that, and this is not news to anyone, but what we see in the media and the news, especially in America, the hyperpolarization created by political parties, it's not the reality of everyday life. It is not the reality of everyday life. And the success that we understood, and this was something I've been mulling over for quite a few years, but it was January 1st that I knew now was the time that I was going to run. And we are buoyed every day by the everyday people we meet. We were in one of the housing projects in Charleston, South Carolina a few days ago, and it was getting towards nighttime, and I'm in the area where they tell you, don't go over there, it's dangerous. Those people, everybody starts talking that way. Those people don't care about politics. Those people don't vote. I'll tell you, I had some of the most enriching conversations. And of course, there was a benefit of me also being African-American. But for them to see me in the community with them and just talking. There was a man who was a felon, a convicted felon. He's out now. And he was telling me what he wanted for his community. Yet he looked like Hein, the stereotype of the people who aren't supposed to want anything for their community. They don't want to work. They don't want. And this man had so many enlightening things to say. And his words will now inform some of the policy that I put forth. And to me, that is what true power should be. It should literally emanate from people. You know, they don't need us to give them ideas. They have them. They need us to support them in their fruition, the application of these incredible things that they know because they are living the lives they're living. And so the beauty is ugly and nasty as politics has been. I've probably been more insulted, guys, in the last 2 months than I have been in my entire 42 years on this earth. No exaggeration. I've never been insulted this much. My intentions have never been questioned this much, but the beauty has come from really getting to know people and to know that they are powerful. But that leadership's job is to bring that power to the forefront and support them so that they can live powerful lives. I will forever be changed by this experience.
I think so. And you decided on was it my birthday that you decided to run for president?
I announced it close to your birthday, I think. But we've been running now close to 7 months, and the reception has been powerful because it's people who say they no longer identify with the polarization. They want something different. So this is a special time to be living through, and I'd be honored to have the privilege to servant lead my country through this era.
Yeah, and I see we have a lot of people from the United States in our webinar, from Canada, from Singapore. It's very late in Singapore, from all places, South Africa, European countries in this webinar. But it's not allowed to sign up for you, Jade. It's not. Is it not allowed for people outside the United States to vote for you?
I wish we could have an international vote in there. But, you know, we look at the protests that have been going on internationally as a vote for change. And that's exciting. That's very exciting.
And to connect with your example, I have another example in Melbourne. It's a guy called 𝒃𝒐𝒒𝒆𝒆 with his wife who experienced 2 days on the street with homeless people. And he's in real estate, and he just decided, and it's winter in Melbourne, so it's cold and freezing. And I'm connecting stories, and I told him we can put a name to every day of the year, what we do, what we now do. Why are we not putting 2 days in the year for the homeless people and start creating that movement and listening to those people on the street, because nobody in this world needs to live on the street.
That's right.
So it's again here, listen. Communication is a problem and solution of everything, and communication starts with listening again. And we now are in a standstill that we can more listen, connecting with your example to what other people have to say.
So if I may just ask you a question, I first of all, I absolutely salute you for taking the step to run for one of the top and probably most influential jobs in the world. I think you are so brave. It's absolutely amazing. Really, I absolutely commend you for that. And I know Maurice is going to tell us about time and when we're running out, but I just want to ask you, you know, your music. I'm so, you know, my entire world that I live in is painted by a tapestry of sound. You know, it is that's how I experience things, harmony. And so I'm just so fascinated at where your love for music and your musical talent. Of course, I'm sure you were born with a musical talent, but where did it start for you with the music? And even more fascinating, by pulling that into your driving the purpose in other people. I think it is just remarkable. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, you know, my dad's going to be very happy. He literally just texted and said, make sure you talk about music. So he's going to be very happy. So I started playing piano very late in the world of classical music. I was almost 9 years old when I started, which I always joke is practically over the hill in the world of Mozart and Beethoven. But I loved it instantly. My mother also plays piano, but she also plays by ear and would play in church. And so when I started playing, I didn't want to stop. So I practiced all the time. And I had a love affair with Russian music, especially. Music that was darker. Everything I play is almost on a minor key. You talk about that relationship with sound and color. And I had an ear for emotion in music. So even as a young girl, I was very emotionally attached to the music, maybe more so than other kids who might have started playing earlier. And they might have had a better technical grasp because they started earlier. But my advantage always came in the interpretation of the music. So even before I went to school to study music, I innately understood what Rachmaninoff should sound like, or I innately understood the difference between Beethoven and Mozart. So today I use the music, I always say, to drive the points home. So it's not enough for me to just tell you what improvisation should be. I bring people up on stage and force them to improvise in real time. And it's the scariest thing they've ever experienced, but it always works out. And to me, it's the epitome of the human spirit, that when we are put on the spot, what we're really made of comes out. And if you have a guide who actually wants you to do well, that doesn't want to instigate something into the situation, but wants to help you activate, it always works out. So we have novices on stage, Hein, that come up and try to convince me, I can't do this, I promise, please let me sit down. And we end up making really fun music together. So music is a driving force. I will tell you, I crave it. I'm finding myself craving it very much so right now because I'm not able to practice. I'm not by my piano. And it serves as an escape for me right now. And I love all sorts of music. My music today goes from, I always say, Rachmaninoff to rap, believe it or not. But that sound connection is something that I can really lose myself in. And you probably understand what it means to have a gazillion thoughts going on at all times. And so music allows me to zero in and focus in one direction. So it's a lifesaver for me.
Oh, wow. I cannot imagine my world not being able to listen to music. You know, so I was always so fascinated about somebody with your kind of talent. And I listened to some of the clips available on YouTube, how you illustrated, you know, by just taking the same piece of music and putting emotion. It just came out, even for me, I was getting goosebumps. I was like, wow, how could you take that piece and make it so beautiful? You know, just by changing the approach.
That's right. I think it's one of the biggest gifts that we've been given. And I know we're talking about cliches. It's, you know, they say music is the universal language, of course, but it's not always as simple as that. But I use it in my presentations because it's the great disarmor. You know, when I bring it in, it gives me a clean slate to work from. And so it's a powerful tool. It's been a powerful tool for me.
Fascinating.
Jade, talk about music. And what I'm thinking, of course, we have the COVID problem. We have the hunger in Africa. Don't forget that. People die of hunger in Africa. When is the new Michael Jackson coming? Who's singing that song that the world is connecting more, and that we are the world, and not that our country is the world, or I am the world.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? What your feeling about that?
Well, I won't have time, at least in the next few months, to write a new song, so I have to let somebody else do that one.
Can I that choir?
Yeah, the choir and everything. It's about time for that moment. And you know, but I think people think of that as being so kumbaya and man, that's so Pollyanna. But the actuality is it's very easy and very practical. You know, I mean, if any of the factions that are currently fighting in my nation were to take up any one of those causes, if you look at the money we spend on political campaigns here, and were to apply that towards a cause. There's so many eradications we could see had. I mean, because I'm a Christian, I talk openly about the church. If every church in America joined together and said, we're going to give $1 to solve that hunger problem, almost instantly, you'd see these things eradicated. So we're in a season now where we've talked long enough. You know, we've dismissed long enough. What is the very simple actions that we can each take to see some of these problems, not just, you know, dealt with temporarily, but really fixed for a long-term solution? I think we're at that moment now where we have to really put our money and our hearts where our mouth is.
It's true. And if we solve that problem in Africa, we can solve everything. Yeah, I guess.
Easily.
And I introduced Hein already with Paul Polman, the former CEO of Unilever. I met him actually on the phone when I was in Vancouver, 2 o'clock midnight during the night. For him in Geneva, 9 o'clock. Finally, after 3 months, I got a connection with it. And Unilever, many people know that company. They are talking about sustainability, but it's not really sustainable. So my first question to him was, what now? What are you going to do and give back to the world? And you're tweeting about sustainability, what now? And he told me, the first thing I'm going to do, Maurice, together with my wife, is to build and create schools for blind people in Africa. And that I remember. I thought, and then I met Hein recently, and I said, well, there's a connection. So I introduced Hein, and guess what? In a few seconds, an answer of Paul Polman. Thank you, Maurice, for introducing Hein. But at the moment, I'm really focused with my team to solve the hunger in Africa. And his foundation is called Imagine. Imagine One. So don't forget that there are more movements in the world.
That's right.
What you and I see, and for the better good of taking care for other people. And even, sorry, Karen, because I see we are running out of time. I will ask Hein, I will share, Hein, your question, and he will answer that in an email to you, Karen. So thank you for your question. But to end this, we can talk, I think, in another 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and we will do that maybe.
Easily, yeah.
Easily. I'm just so happy that I have you both just shortly before the summer break. Thank you, Jade. You are such an amazing, beautiful person. Thank you, Hein, as well, and thank you for doing this with me. and we are so much aligned in where we are going to, where we see that. Is it the new world? Is it just feel, do, and just do it, and don't talk, but just do it? We must more listen to you, Hein, and you, Jade, that we just can do it. Not only Nike is just do it, but we can all do it. You are great examples of showing yourself. Why not? Why not?
Thank you, Maurice.
So please give the people in this webinar, and for sure we will share this replay to more people in the world. Give especially people who are in fear, who lost their jobs, who lost maybe their company, who don't know how, who don't know what's the next step. I always say we cannot do it alone. We must do it together. And just share your story. Don't be afraid to share your story, because we are engaged with similar stories in the world. So I would ask you first, Hein, and then we will end with Jade. What's your takeaway for the people?
Sure, thank you, Maurice. And again, just last words from me. Thanks for the opportunity to be part of this wonderful session. I really enjoyed it, and it's great meeting Jade. So I think for me, what was the thing that hit me the hardest during this COVID-19 was also fear. But I have years ago, I've managed to learn to make fear my friend. Because if I, for example, want to cross the road and go buy bread, I know there's going to be a bus maybe coming in the same direction. So I say to fear, well, thanks for pointing out the risk, but you have to go sit on the couch and relax because I need to cross the road to go do a simple thing like buying bread and milk. So manage your fear. We all have obstacles. Mine some days may be darker than yours. I do not know the answer, but I can tell you this. The day that I started looking at blindness from a slightly different perspective, it became the greatest opportunity I could ever dream for. I believe that if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. And I am blind. Exactly what is your excuse?
Yeah, we we all have to think of that. We are becoming silent because thank you for those beautiful words, sharing it. It's the power that using the right words that gives a feeling that we all need. Hein, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Jade, your last words.
Yeah, well, thank you for putting me behind Hein there. That was no favor, but I'll do my best here. You know, I say on every platform, and it's not because I don't have something else to say. It's because I believe it must be said until people hear it. Which is, I talk about purpose, and I always say that your purpose is not the thing you do. You mentioned people who might be watching. You know, they have their jobs and their careers, and if we're not careful, we mistake those things for our purpose. And I always say that your purpose is actually the thing that happens in others when you're doing what you do. So even Hein's purpose wasn't to create what he's created, the school that he has. It's what's happening in people because they encounter the thing that he's created. And there's a wonderful release that I believe we all get to have. We release ourselves from the titles and the positions and the expectations, and we just focus on the impact. What is it that you are called to have happen in other people just because you exist? And so I just encourage you to be who you are, because there are literally people that will be unlocked and unleashed by you just being who you are. So this is a time where don't hide in this season. Don't hide your light under a basket in this season, but dare to just really stand out, speak up, and trust that people are going to have incredible encounters just because of that. So that's my encouraging word to end with.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jade. And please promise me, if you are the president of the United States, please invite me just for
of course
coffee or tea.
Yes, yes. Consider yourselves both invited to the inauguration for starters. Okay. Thank you.
We were already friends, and it's much stronger what we feel now. And thank you again. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you both.
I wish you
Jade.
Good luck, Jade. If you need support, please ask. Please ask, and please support Jade for all the people in the chat and who see this webinar. Please engage with her. Mm-hmm. Listen, hear, and believe. Hein, thank you as well. We will meet soon again, and everyone who joined this live, thank you so much. It was a very, very special one for me. Next Tuesday, I already told you, I have Dave Sanderson because I want to support the flight industry at the moment. Such a hard time, and I was only thinking, okay, how can I bring? And he told me that he was also the director for 10 years of Tony Robbins. And there's another great story about them. Just great human beings to connect with one another with great stories that can help people to get that fear away. That's the only thing what I am doing. And that's an easy job. It's just that step one. And only the speakers have to say yes. 24 webinars now, climate change, energy poverty, a lot of motivational, personal development, ancient wisdom. I had them. I started in the beginning. Okay, why? What is happening in the world? Why is it this year? I think spiritual, logical way. We are all in this together.
Yeah.
And we become stronger as we know that Mother Nature is telling us something. So hope to see everyone in the next webinar, Tuesday in the evening, 9 p.m. Because we are connecting with somewhere down New York City, where my wife is now flying to as a flight attendant with KLM. Coming back on Saturday, she will be there as well, and experiencing the story of Dave Sanderson, what happened 9 years ago during that Hudson crash in New York City. Tom Hanks, watch the movie first, yeah. Tom Hanks, good. And then you hear what really happened on Tuesday.
Wow.
Jade, Hein, thank you so much.
Thank
you, Maurice. Thank you, Jade.
Bye-bye, everyone.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.